had a thought yesterday. You know, an idea. One of those things, just like a headache, but with pictures. So anyway, the thought was, I'm running a 60-volt system. 60 volts running into a 60-volt controller, outputting to the bridge rectifier built, which is designed for 72 volts. Maybe, and since no damage has been done to the 60-volt controller in this process, I'm going to try later today, I'm going to try doing the exact same thing with the 6th battery attached, running it at 72 volts through the 72 volt controller with the bridge rectifier built to run on 72 volts. I'm going to see what happens, because it might be that there just isn't enough oomph to chooch the wheels. Because when I turn it on and set it up, I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but turn it on. Listen very, very closely. You might be able to hear this. When I turn this on, when I hit the throttle, there might be a click. There is just a click at the start, enough that momentarily power hits the back wheels, but it isn't enough to turn the motor. So, next step in this process is disconnect the 60-volt controller, which I'm using for testing, connect the 72-volt controller, which I'm going to be using permanently, and see what happens. If that doesn't work, then I go through these little wires here, and I find a means by which I can bypass the Hall effect sensor. That will be the next step. Found another potential solution to this problem. So, this big, chunky, switch, multi wires off of it. This big chunky switch came off of the quad that this motor was on. It was connected to a controller that quite possibly and quite likely had 3-phase wiring. This being the case, it may be the necessary component to bypass Hall effect sensor altogether. If this is the case, then the third wire will go there, the yellow and blue, and that would be the green. And on this side, this is where the red and black were attached. I have to go and look at previous footage of myself ripping this thing apart to discover where the red and black wires go. And if that is the case, and that works, I got a whole bunch of extra diodes in case anyone else happens to need a bridge rectifier. But I'm going to do my best to figure this whole situation out, and when I start experimenting again, I will film more. Okay, near as I can tell, once I took this apart and checked through it, and it is a big clunky switch, but it's also got several components in there. It is in fact a bridge rectifier with a switch to go forward or reverse, which is really interesting to me. A little more complicated than I thought it initially was, but that might be potentially useful. I just got to figure out the right combination of what wires to hook up to what wires on that end, and on that end go into the motor. So that is an option, which I'm going to try, because that is the one that was originally connected to this motor and hooked it to a controller. This, and that may or may not work, because the system it was hooked up to was 36 volt. This, the bridge rectifier I built, which, ugly as it is functional, is set up to run on a 72 volt system. So it might not operate correctly, if at all, on the 60 volt system I have it hooked up to right now. So I have to switch over and do everything on the 72 volt system. And I'll test this one, and I'll test that one. And if anything's going to blow, it's going to be that one. But it's as may be. Today, however, I have a different job. Today I got to do a delivery. I got to make a run into Vancouver from Chilly Willy Wacky Land to deliver to one client who had already paid for all of this work the final alterations on these last two shoulder harnesses, wallets. So the last two that were finished quite a while back, I did the final alterations on them, made them to fit to measure. They have to be delivered, and another previous order which is yet to be paid, which we wait until delivery before payment. A gift for a friend who is this client, and a pair of leather floggers, which they're one of the things I make, and they're a favorite of some clients, some of whom are also friends. So I got two of these that I got to deliver and get paid for. Get that back in the bag. It's hard doing things with one hand. So that is going to be dealt with, and this is a book, which is a friend of mine who is buying a couple floggers. He collects military paraphernalia and history, and this I thought it'd interest him because it's not doing me any good. I got a hold of it at one point and read through it, and it's an interesting piece of history. Canadian author Bing Coghlan, and it's an original. Volume 2 of the book This Army. And the date on it, first edition, published in Italy, number 2 Canadian Public Relations Group, 1945. So it is actually World War II ephemera. But that's being delivered along with built products to a friend, and I'm getting paid for some stuff today. So that's going to be, rather than give $20 to public transit, giving $20 worth of gas to a friend, and I'm getting driven there and back. So I'm going to save I'm saving about 2 hours travel time that way. So it's only going to take about 5 hours round trip instead of 7 to 8. So talk to you tomorrow.